Terran Design Principles. Interstellar Design Consortium Conference. I always love seeing all the small updates and upgrades to design all the different species have. Tiber rippled gleefully. Yeah, the same stuff as last year with all the normal minimum changes needed to qualify to even come to the conference. Caesar bemoaned, shaking themselves a bit. Come on, it's not that bad. Besides, the conference is where the new species get to show off their own designs. What could be more exciting than seeing how a new species designs their spacecraft? Tiber refused to give in to Caesar's energy. I suppose, but there are only so many ways to build vessels that you reach a point where a Bullochian cruiser and a Wenian cruiser are practically indistinguishable. Caesar gripped a piece of food, assured that the day would be filled with excessive treats, so some decent food should be obtained at least. Maybe to the entirely untrained eye, but those two species vessels look nothing alike to us. Tiber also decided that food was a good idea. Did you actually read the brochure? Caesar prompted. More or less. There's going to be several exhibitions of the latest improvements. Tiber said. And you apparently didn't notice that they moved halls specifically for this solar cycle. Caesar mentioned. So? When in the last 100 solar cycles has the conference moved from the normal exhibition hall? Caesar asked. This required a bit of thought by Tiber. Not since the Julans joined and first attended the conference. Their design principles were so radical, the conference council moved the conference just to be able to give them adequate exhibition space. Tiber said, recounting as though reading or recounting one of their design teachers, before looking back at Caesar. Why? Caesar was busy eating and so did not immediately respond. Luckily Tiber was there and hated silence. Oh. You think that one of the new species maybe has something similar? Tiber asked, their excited energy returning. Caesar rippled in response. I want to go see these new designs then. This will be so much fun. Tiber said, practically towing Caesar away from the food towards the auto transports. What's this? Tiber exclaimed. The view before Tiber was alien. There was no other word for it. As far as Tiber could tell and see, one of the new species had so many different designs, the conference had given them not 2, but 5 rows of exhibition space. Such a quantity of space being given to one species, even a new one, was unheard of. Caesar wore a look of indifference, not appearing to be as shocked as Tiber was, but was still clearly caught off guard by the huge space dedication. From the species entrance table for the space, a strange-looking being approached the pair. Bipedal, extended limbs which divided into graspers, obvious sensory apparatus on top with some sort of bio-extrusions appearing to be attached to its top. Greetings and welcome gentle beings. Welcome to the Terran exhibition space. Would you like to have a look around? The strange being gestured with their extended limbs. While their galactic standards sounded almost perfect, their body language was terrible. Tiber skipped over the missteps of body language. Enough semi-first encounters by themselves with other species at the conference had led to a sort of personal filter. Most of these other species didn't know or couldn't begin to replicate proper body language. Caesar was far more incensed by this terrible body language, but saw Tiber move to follow this being and so put it aside for now. Caesar would much rather be at home, working on their own designs, rather than coming and cooing over other designs that had had 2 accidental changes that somehow made the design more desirable to some new part of the conference. Identify yourself please, Caesar said, somewhat gruffly, following the being and Tiber. I am a member of the Terran conference greeting staff for this event. The being said. And what is a tier rain? Tiber asked. We're a new exhibitionary species. We were discovered last solar cycle as part of the Trilo expedition. The Terran said, their body language still terrible, but not moving. The mispronunciation of their species name seemed to go right past it, Caesar noticed. Although it was highly unlikely that Tiber meant anything by it. For all their creative genius, Tiber didn't appear to have a single unkind bortle in the whole of their form. So what unique designs has your species brought that makes you so interesting as to grant you 5 entire rows? Caesar prompted. The Terran shifted their sensory apparatus to one side, the bio-extrusion moving oddly. Is it uncommon for there to be an allotment of such space? The Terran asked. Exceptionally. The normal exhibition spaces of other species are typically confined to much less than a row each. Caesar said, raising themselves up a bit. I shall have to make a note of it for future years. The Terran said. Yes, hopefully it wasn't too daunting to try to fill 5 rows. Most species would find it a challenge. Caesar rippled. They were enjoying this. Well, it was a challenge. We actually had to organize a competition just to get the best of the best on show here. The Terran said. Caesar paused and ceased rippling. Do you mean that your species actually has more designs than you were able to bring? Tiber was fully rippling and about to begin lubricating the floors. That's entirely correct, gentle being. The Terran said, appearing to be proud in some regard. No standardized design protocol? How do you ensure design functionality? Caesar asked. That's on the designers. Which is to say that it is the responsibility of the designers to ensure functionality, as long as it can be safely operated. We do have safety protocols which dictate certain design limits, but those largely depend on the applications. The Terran said, gesturing to conference data chips which would be pre-populated with all of the related brochures and documents from this species exhibition. Normally these chips were the cheapest and smallest available, but to Caesar's eye, these were longer by a solid teleth and shown in the light, marking them as a grade or 3 above the usual. That meant, to Caesar's trained thoughts, these chips must be brimming with design information. Quickly, Caesar took one of the chips and plugged it straight into their conference-issued data pad. Instead of the near-instant leap into a single brochure, it actually took several moments for the whole of the data to be loaded onto the data pad. From there, a fully customized data screen greeted Caesar, and Tiber, who was looking around Caesar at the data screen, with menus delineating over a dozen design categories. Capping one, the menu for fusion reactors expanded and revealed another 30 menu items, components as well as variable-sized designs and even decorative varieties. How is it possible that one species has so many designs? Would it not be simpler to have standardized all of your designs? Tiber asked. Caesar was surprised. Tiber had asked the question that Caesar had just been forming. Getting all the Terran designers to accommodate safety standards is difficult enough. Enforcing standard designs beyond that is practically impossible. However, by your question, I am forced to draw the conclusion that this is not the case with other species. Is this correct? The Terran asked, their body language still terrible. Most established species have a singular set of standardized designs which designers are permitted to build upon and recommend improvements to. Caesar said, still bewildered by the huge number of menu items being shown. Oh. The Terran said, and drooped a bit. After a moment, the Terran perked back up. Well, I hope you enjoy looking through our exhibitions then. If you require assistance, Terrans who are specialists, but not designers, are available to answer questions within each segment of our section. The Terran said, many thanks, Tiber said, and turned to move off. Caesar was about to follow before turning back to the Terran. Are you aware of speaking body language? Caesar asked. I am, but unfortunately, if you are a Psittacron. Caesar nodded. Then I'm afraid we Terrans have internal structures that make it impossible for us to speak your species' body language. Interesting. Based on this statement, I presume it is some manner of rigid structure that you do not have voluntary or nor involuntary control over. Caesar said, glancing onward and seeing Tiber already talking rapidly with another Terran while gesturing almost wildly at a strange-looking block of metals. That is correct. Please pardon our body language, but we are unable to speak it as you do. The Terran said. Caesar gave the Terran a departing gesture and moved on to catch up with Tiber, who had moved on to the next metal block, with the Terran specialist standing next to them. I feel like I'm back at my first year in design school, Tiber said, veritably collapsing into a pile. It was truly humbling to see that many designs from one species. Caesar agreed, sinking into a matching pile. Not just that, but there's so much variation. You don't know instantly from looking at a given vessel to be able to say that it's a Terran vessel or not. With all those designs, it's practically impossible. Tiber said, clearly wanting to ripple almost out of control, but lacking the energy to do so. And those are just the designs they brought this year. Based on that entrance Terran, this was but a sampling of their designs. Caesar recalled, I feel inadequate as a designer, seeing all those designs. So many of them are so simple and yet so obvious. Tiber murmured, just keep in mind that there's still the rest of the conference to view. Caesar muttered, gel the rest of the conference. We're going back to those Terran exhibitions tomorrow and getting more data. This is too interesting to pass up. Tiber said, but what about the Fregnin conductors? I believe you were looking forward to seeing how they'd managed an additional 3% efficiency in their shuttle designs. Caesar mentioned, only slightly surprised at Tiber's attitude. 3% is nothing compared to some of these design principles of these Terrans. And tomorrow, I need a proper data slate for note-taking. The following conference, every non-Terran was given a copy of Terran Design Principles, an examination by Professors Tiber and Caesar of Knullian Higher Learning. The opening of the document reads as follows. Pretend you know everything about species' unique design principles. Everything. From Fregnin conductor design to Pteuthon hypercruiser standards. Now be faced with Terran design principles, the first and only rule of which is safety. There are no other design rules for Terrans and no higher standards. Only safety. What this means is that Terran designs are more varied than 100 species' unique design principles, and as part of this text, we will explore the key areas of Terran design principles as they relate to the best designs that have been shown as part of the Interstellar Design Consortium Conference. Hopefully you're prepared to be confused, annoyed, and even angered.